So the recording is initiated finally. It's now clear. Therefore, I, Abhivardhan, as one of the session consultants, would now request the president to take any motion for public meeting 1. Therefore, it is up to the president or the delegate to prioritize any of the agendas among the 4 to initiate with the session. The attendance has been taken. All of the delegates nearly have voted present and voting, which is registered. So let us start the session accordingly. So I would request Sanjay sir to initiate. If you would like to prioritize any one of the agendas to discuss today.
No. So absolutely, yes. Let's go with the order in which we have the agenda items. And I suggest that with the acceptance of all, we can start with the scope of Splinternet and 5G governance and multilateral governance and data sovereignty policy.
That's great. It sounds wonderful. So we can go ahead with this. No issues. Therefore, I would request any of the delegates to actually request a motion. We'll just vote it. A 2/3 majority or an absolute majority will work out. So I would request any of the delegates to just introduce a motion anyways. Or else what we can do is, since the Honorable President has already done it, we need to just pass this motion. So those who in favor of the motion to initiate or table the agenda 1, and I will repeat what is agenda 1. Agenda 1 is the scope of Splinternet and 5G governance and multilateral governance data sovereignty policy. Please register your votes by saying ayes, not saying ayes in the sense of sound, in the sense of writing. So please type ayes on your Google Meet chat and we'll just evaluate in a minute. Please. It's required from all the delegates, so please, since all of you have said present and voting, so it's a part of procedure, everybody has to vote. Thank you. Okay, so it is approximately, or I think exactly 12. I hope we have not missed any delegate. It is clear then. Those delegates who are leaving in a while and joining again, unfortunately, there might be an issue not to receive their votes. But anyways, it will be considered like an instant absence and presence. So it doesn't matter. But those who are present at that moment and voting, we can do. Shruti, I need to confirm. I think you have voted, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so it is an aye from your side. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great. So it's an aye. We have tabled agenda 1. So we initiate with the discussion. Now, for this session, it is necessary to decide how will we go with the formal debate. So for the formal debate, I would request any of the delegates to table a motion to discuss any one aspect of the agenda. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a cheat sheet, which will actually be an easy way to go ahead how to initiate with this. It's just a reference sheet, we can say. We should not say cheat sheet anyways. So I'm sharing the document in a way. So please just give me a minute. Okay, I hope all the delegates are able to see it. Kshitij, is it visible, this sheet?
Yes, it is appears.
Yes. So since you have tabled the first agenda, these are the 4 pointers Additional pointers can be added. There is no problem with it. These are some specific aspects which the president and we decided, so they are not absolute. Okay, these are the suggestive pointers. If you feel you wish to start with any of them, you can. If any delegate wishes to initiate with any of the pointers accordingly, please go ahead. We need to have a motion to table a formal debate for a particular time. The ideal time accepted is 30 minutes. Every person will get 5 minutes. Or else, if no motion is initiated, then what we can do is we can go ahead with opening speeches in an alternative manner, because position statements have been submitted, and based on the position statements and everything, we can go ahead. So that's the thing. So yes, now it is up to the delegates to decide. So yes. Okay, so I would like to request if any delegate is interested to start with any one sub-agenda or any one sub-aspect of the agenda. It is requested, please, if anybody wishes to. Because this is up to the delegates. This is not up to the executive board and the session consultants. Please.
I would like to propose a motion to start with the first agenda under the Splinternet, because what I believe is that Splinternet, essentially, it can't be governed. It's already a very pervasive phenomena. We see the EU building a separate intranet for itself. We see Google, in fact, even though the web is standardized, Google, in fact, works on the principle of Splinternet because it alters the suggestive searches which it gives you based on your searching history. Russia has its own Splinternet. It has its own unique DNS server. It highly alters what its citizens can or cannot view, and it has often been accused of plaguing the internet with false news which favors the Russian propaganda. And I believe even though multilateral organizations like ICANN and IFF exist, they can't really control what's happening at a sovereign level. So the issue of Splinternet can't really have a multi-stakeholdership model to itself.
Your request is accepted, Sanad. So what we can now do is we just need to pass a vote. So any delegates who are in favor of this sub-agenda, as enumerated by Mr. Sanad in a beautiful manner, please say aye as those in the Google Meet chat, please. It is requested from all the delegates. Yes. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, it is considered 11. It is a majority. I have a request, since Professor Ankit Shripatwar has joined right now. We need to register his attendance. So, Mr. Ankit Shripatwar, your vote will only be registered when we confirm whether you will be present in voting for this session. So, present in voting, I would say yes. Yes. Okay, thank you. I will register it as present in voting only, because this is important that we know who is there. So, okay, PV is registered. Thank you. So now, since we said that ideally 30 minutes is the timing and 5 minutes is to be granted, this can be extended and renewed every time. So those delegates who are in a particular order wish to speak, please register your names. I need your names. So who would like to, the first 6 people who would like to discuss this agenda? So Sanad, you be the first speaker?
Sir, I've already stated what the points which I have read, and the points which cater to my ideology. I'd like the other delegates to have their take on it, and then maybe I can add further.
Okay, so we will register you as a last speaker in that sense. So okay, so you will be the 6th one. Who would like to be? Please register your names. You can say yes It is required, please. So the first 5 delegates who wish to be, because we do not wish to choose and do all of that. This is not within our jurisdiction. So please, those delegates who would like to initiate, the first 5 people. And so Sanad will be the last, since he is the person to initiate the motion, which is passed. Yes. Okay, Mridut Pal, you have just arrived. I need to confirm it. Is it present in voting, right? Hello, Mridut Pal, can you hear me? Okay, so we need to then, so I think, Sanjay sir, I think we need to go ahead with choosing the delegates, because that is something which is also a thing which we don't wish to do. Because the thing is that if 6 people have to speak initially, then at least people have to speak up. So let us do in this order.
So,
Uh,
so,
yes,
so Abhi,
yes,
what I would like to propose, and this is subject to everybody's approval, that
yes,
before we get onto the paper, in order to
right,
set the context, is it advisable that if we can give everybody 3 to 5 minutes as an opening remark, just to set the
right,
context, so that accordingly
sure,
then when we present the papers, we can at least start from there and then present the papers and take it from there. So at least to set the context and have the warming session, let's give
sure,
everybody
sure.
3 to 5 minutes to at least open it up, and then we can take it from there.
Exactly. I think that would be better. It would be experientially reasonable. Okay, so in the particular order of voting, okay, I will initiate this accordingly. So Mridut Pal, I'm registering you as present and voting. I hope there's no issue, right? Confirm through Google Chat as soon as possible. If it is not, then it will be only present, because we can't make you absent, obviously. So, in no particular in a particular order, actually, alphabetical order per se. Thank you. I've registered you as present and voting accordingly. Now, so we will initiate with this sub agenda as soon as possible. Anurati, you have ideally no issues. Anurati, you have 5 minutes to begin with the session. So, as far as the agenda we know, Splinternet and its considerations. Um, please start. Thank you.
Okay. Am I clearly audible? Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, please proceed.
Am I clearly audible?
Yes, it is audible. Yes.
Um, about the motion of Splinternet and the 5G governance, I think I would like to state that my position on on the topic would be that um, not only to see how the Splinternet is growing, but also to make sure that such a motion is in accordance with the humanitarian laws. We have to keep in mind the fact of online freedom, and we have to say that such online freedom is not hello. Hello.
Yes, please proceed. Please proceed. We are actually counting your time. Therefore,
Okay.
I would really recommend to go ahead. So please don't waste your time, because otherwise the time lapse will happen. That's why I'm requesting. Please go ahead. Yes, thank you. We can
Thank you.
actually
Sorry.
grant extension. That's the thing. So we are listening. Please go ahead. Thank you
Okay.
so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Um, as I was saying, the fact that we have to make sure on humanitarian grounds that the rules that we put in place, or even the present condition of Splinternet, even though as my previous delegate has mentioned, that it is something which is inevitable. It has already taken place. Countries like Russia, China, and a lot of other countries like Cuba, Iran, and Turkish have taken measures to make sure that they are safeguarding their internet. But at the same time, what is really needed is that we make sure that the online freedom, which is a huge aspect and an important aspect, is not taken away from the people and from the citizens. It is important to make sure that that multilateral agreements put in place are such that encourage and spread awareness about the need of online freedom and the need of having a platform where you have economic growth. Also, developed countries have developing and developed countries, if I may say, have a lot of scope. It is, if I would like to also state that in one of the from 2016, one of the United Nations Assembly had a unanimous motion being passed of online freedom being a fundamental right. However, it was just a consensus, but this gives UN the right to enforce some human rights digital standards. And my stance would be that humanitarian grounds and humanitarian rights and human rights for online freedom are something that are very important. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shruti. So, just to take this forward for a while, I will initiate with the timer and everything. Next order we have Arundhati. So, Arundhati, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much. So my only my point here being is that how can you govern something which should not be governed? So as we all know, internet per se itself is something which allows you to speak up freely, something which allows you to express yourself as freely as possible. And with the way the governments are trying, not just governments, I mean a lot of corporations as well, they're trying to create these segments, these boxes of internet, splinternet, and putting up their firewalls and basically sort of putting it in a protected environment. How can they do that when the entire purpose of us living in a world is being integrated together? So I mean, it all started with back when Virginia, someone just said there are 13 root servers in the world, and then someone just said just direct it to one thing, and just realized that the US government, while it tried to control the internet, it could not be controlled because internet is something which it's free. And so we see how China tries to, and how China has time and again tried to regulate the data which its citizens can see, but citizens have only tried to come out of it through uploading their data in different avenue platforms. For example, we see how they uploaded this entire debacle about the coronavirus on the blockchain, all its proof, and thereby circumventing the Chinese regulations on the internet. So that's how we see, and it's not just countries which are doing it. Even our Indian government per se, they too are putting up several regulations and checks on the internet. But just like being in a world where data is so free, how can you try and make it because we're a democracy, like the world is trying to be a democracy, and how can you just restrict it to something which has to be regulated and which is not a part of free speech? Yeah, thank you.
I think it's my turn to speak up.
I think there's some network issues with Abhivardhan. So I think you should continue, Diksha, please.
Okay, so if the time could restart, I wish to proceed.
The time has started when you initiate. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, so on the issue split internet, I would like to firstly tell my position that I completely agree to the sovereignty issues that have been, uh, in present scenarios, interviewing you could say interviewing every government in recent times, because of the fact that if we look at international law scenarios, we know that internet is not something that can be restricted to borders, but we need to look into the matter that how sovereignty is the prime thing for every country. Even in Chicago Convention, and in various other conventions we have at hand, we understand the point of customary international law. So despite all these laws and the freeness of internet, we need to understand that various factors are responsible that why government of different countries are trying to restrict internet and and bring into various regulations. So these factors range from politics, journalism, fake news, protection of citizens, and so on, as you could go ahead with. So in order to add to that point, I would like to cite one of the cases of Hughes versus Oklahoma, which is a case related to economic balkanization. We also refer plain internet as internet balkanization, and the Supreme Court, the US Supreme Court in this case, took forward the concept of balkanization. And after this case, the government has tried to invoke certain economic policies related to balkanization and develop the internet, the split internet issue in detail. So I basically believe that some people will cautiously allude to the ultimate importance of unity in the lower levels of internet architecture, but the technology literature is much richer than that and than that. So I would say that split internet, we could say, is a way of segregating people online according to one's preferences. That is what is being perceived by most of us. Also, we can say that it can be a different levels of infrastructure interconnection to the internet. We could also say it as fragments resulting from regulatory and cultural forces, or it could be a diplomatic agenda. So governments around the world have tried to reduce the ambit of internet in order to protect the various states that the country is facing. Because even if we are seeing that there is internet shutdown in Myanmar and it has been severely been criticized, I clearly support the stand of the people that the right to internet is one of the basic human right, and even it is a fundamental right that has been considered now. A recent ruling of the Kerala High Court in this case. But we need to analyze the point of view of government in considering that there has to be some authority and regulation for the internet, so that because in this times because at this point of time we need to realize the fact that if internet is not regulated, it may harm the security and safety of a nation as a whole. Since cyber threats, and we could face so many issues that we have at hand. So I believe that governance of Splin internet is very important in recent times. Thank you.
Thank you, Diksha. You had 1 minute left, and we hereby go ahead with the next speaker. So, Dave, you have 5 minutes from now on. Start. Thank you.
Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay, so it is quite difficult to understand the impact that 5G network will have over individuals if and when it is implemented.
The timer accordingly. Yeah.
However, it is imperative to understand that the risks that the risks that are associated with the introduction of 5G technology, it is said that 5G can be capable of offering up to 600 times faster the internet speed as compared to the current 4G network, which we are acquainted with. So 5G or the fifth generation of mobile technology data and the Internet of Things can be deemed to be regarded as two micro technological advancements which have enabled individuals to process data, and this will enable them to analyze the data 2.7 times faster as compared to 4G networks. And the 5G technology is designed in such a way which would enable users to send data to and fro in a much simpler manner and a much easier manner. Now, cyberspace can be deemed to regarded as a global infrastructure. Can be deemed to be regarded as a global infrastructure, which is proven to be extremely essential for businesses and security. So back when it was developed, individuals really did not have any clue with regards to the essential tools and how it would bring economies together and societies together in new and complex ways. However, in a broader sense, the framework pertaining to relations that delves into a degree of predictability with regards to these interactions can be governed, and the governance with regards to the internet and cyberspace is comparatively new and a crucial aspect of governance as countries are now coming closer together, and the perceptions with regards to transnational risks are increasing with each passing day. So, it is understandable that entering into an international agreement and regulating internet security and the Internet of Things will be no cakewalk due to the countries having a lot of different perspectives when it comes to regulating their data. So, therefore, with this understanding, cybersecurity can be deemed to be regarded as a very important facet of cyberspace and cyber governance. And the India's framework pertaining to internet governance is still based on the old cliches of the Indian diplomacy. So it is imperative for the judiciary to establish a robust piece of legislation regulating the sustainable use of 5G, Splinternet, and the Internet of Things. Thank you.
In the coming order, I believe it will be um, after Mr. Dev, it will be okay. So it was Dev after Diksha, but before Diksha, but anyways. Okay, so I think it's to Mr. Goffey. So yes, sir. Please go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Indra. Good morning, everyone. Short statement about this Splinter and thing is that I do believe that we are reaching with the internet the limits of the very naive, if I may say, or idealist point of view that the United Nations and some countries are sharing about the fact that we can have kind of a global governance of the internet. My point here is to say that this balkanization of the internet is something unavoidable, and I don't believe that there will be any kind of global governance unless, and maybe it is idealistic to say that, but unless we will be able to take into account all the different cultural perspective on the use of internet. I fear that we are all judging other countries based on our own, lens and our own cultural perspective on what is acceptable and what is not. And for example, when I look at data privacy, and I know that there is strong concern about how China is setting this surveillance society, but I mean, there is something that we all have to understand is that we cannot judge China and we cannot judge other countries through the lens of the Western countries, or even judge the practices of this or that country through a specific lens. We have to take into account all those cultural differences. And here with the internet, the point is that we've created something that goes far and way beyond borders and way beyond the international system that has been created with the United Nations, right? And my concern is to see that we are all talking about global governance, knowing that it will never happen. The only set of rules that can be established to govern the internet, if it's possible, would be really superficial ones, would be really limited ones that will never be applied fully or efficiently at all levels in all the world. So obviously, this said, we can just see that The internet is balkanized, and I fear that it will keep on going this way. I don't think that there is any room for global governance. For one good reason is that the way here, for example, in France, we see privacy isn't the same way as, for example, the US is seeing privacy, or China is seeing privacy, and I do believe that maybe in India you have a different perspective on that. So if we think that we can have a global governance, at some point we have to accept that it will be kind of a tyranny of some countries that will be powerful enough to set the rules and to impose them upon the rest of the world. So basically, we have the choice between just keeping, going on with this balkanization of the internet, or having kind of a tyranny of a governed global governance that would obviously be biased, because as far as I know it so far, the internet or the global governance is mainly and too often, and this is something that is really bad, too often regulated by the Western part of the world. So we have to, if we really want to find a solution to that, if we really want to move forward to a global governance, at some point we will have to just put aside our a priori about who is doing things good and doing bad, and just to accept that we all have different perspective on what internet is and what the role of internet can be in our societies. So this is my point.
Thank you so much. You actually had 1 minute, 10 seconds left. So thank you. Um, the next speaker will be Kashvi Shetty. So Kashvi, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes. I'm audible, right? Okay. So I do believe, like the other delegates have already stated it, that global governance is something that we definitely would want, but it is inevitable that something like Splinternet will happen. This is because political ideologies or nations do want to govern the internet like it is their own, and this is because definitely there are conflicting ideologies, conflicting political values, and if now something like the splinternet is coming, the only thing that we could really do is regulate the splinternet, and rather than going to something that is as ideal as global governance. But what I believe and what my position is in this, that rather we have to start from a bottom to top approach, like in the sense that the most preliminary values like human rights. So this is something that has to be there in every stakeholder present. So firstly, what would be required for even maintaining that the splinternet is governed in the right fashion would be an increasing of the number of stakeholders. States are not the only that could govern the internet. Individuals are our stakeholders. We have our NGOs, we have civil society organizations. Definitely, previously there have been situations where the international government or international internal government organizations such as ICANN are something that we were dependent on for like internet governance, but that did lead to problems because definitely like the powerful countries, they have a major hand in such organizations, and that would not be equality, or that would not even promote the right to internet. So if something like splinternet is there, the countries at their own like national levels, if the citizens are more aware, if the NGOs and the civil society organizations can help in promoting these human right values, in promoting this right to internet which comes from the human right values, then this could be something that is much more effective to govern something like the splinternet. Because us achieving for something like for us achieving something like global governance, it would require a high level of cooperation, which even if we do achieve in the later years, but at least at the point of time that we are right now, we are seeing that there is splinternet going on. We are seeing that nations are taking, like China is taking their own firewall, or Russia is taking their own runet. So this is happening. So right now, for an immediate method that we would have to adopt is focusing on how we can regulate this and for that we have to focus on, okay, like the governments still have the power, the governments would have the power of their particular ideologies of how they want to govern the internet. So we have to respect those values, but at the same time not allow something like censorship or surveillance. These are some things that are essentially wrong, and for like people to stand against it, that these values should not be promoted. We require certain democratic values that need to be there in all sorts of governance, even if it is happening in a splinter net, and even if it is happening by particular nations. So that kind of regulatory, you could say guidelines or norms is something that internationally we do have, like our customary international law or our international human rights law, which does not promote this. So this is something that has not, like, is something that is imbibed in the international law as well, that right to internet is promoted through the various laws that have been there. So it along with splinternet, what needs to be maintained is that these rights, like the international human right law, is something that is taken forward by the various organizations. So these various organizations is something that we will have to look at. We not be looking into a system of multilateral governance, but what we are looking into will be a system of multi-stakeholderism rather, because that is like even the smaller stakeholders have their points, have their voice of opinion, and they are at the end of the day who are going to make a change in these systems. And even if there are certain oppressive splinternet systems that are there, it will be those stakeholders which will make this change. So yeah, that is what I had to say about this agenda.
Thank you, Kashmi. You had 36 to 37 seconds left. Thank you so much. So the next speaker in the process will be uh, Mudit Pal. So Mudit Pal, you have 5 minutes.
Yes. So, a very good morning. It's still morning. A very good morning to all of you. I would like to start off by saying that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that people have the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of any frontiers. The declaration was drafted in 1948, and it represented the sentiment that was felt following the World War II. And the ideal was to prevent authoritarian propaganda and censorship. Now, in the present scenario, a euphemism by the name of data sovereignty has been taking place, and such instances, such as the ban of Tencent from having its hold in India, having its hold in the gaming market in India, is an example of such authoritarianism. Digital content available to UK citizens via the BBC's iPlayer is becoming increasingly unavailable to Germans. South Korea filters, censors, and blocks news agencies belonging to North Korea. Then, also, China and Russia might be two of the biggest internet disruptors. They are by no means the only ones. The Cuban, Iranian, and even Turkish politicians have begun pushing information sovereignty. And as I said, it is an euphemism for replacing services provided by Western internet companies with their very own limited but easier to control products. In that sense, perhaps the grasp that Reliance has on the industry in India can also be considered to be such an instance where the monopolization is encouraged, especially in a country which is as economically weak as India. So, from that aspect, I believe it is necessary to not only decide or delve into the policies or the politics behind behind the splinter net, but it is also important to make sure that awareness is effectively spread, because without awareness nothing good can ever come and no development can ever happen. Like The first time this agenda was drawn up, I personally did not know what splinternet even meant. I had to research on it, and I believe that's the same with mm about 80% of the population. They don't know what it is. Like, people are not even aware of the deep web, let alone the dark web. Then how can we possibly expect them to be aware of the splinternet or internet or internet balkanization at all? So the first step, in my opinion, in any organizational approach should be to encourage and enrich awareness. And also, policies are always important and they need to be put into effect. But then again, actions speak louder than words. So merely discussing or writing policies shall not really be substantially effective in in achieving any kind of development or progress. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Mridutpal. You still had 1 minute, 7 seconds left. I would request Mr. Prakhar Prakash to speak next, please.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Prakhar. So, here our agenda is to discuss the scope of SplinterNet. So, as we have already agreed upon, that SplinterNet is a reality now. So, let's stand what is SplinterNet. As as earlier, we understood that internet is a world wide web available across the world in a free and open entity. But then now we have this fragmented internet that is splinternet, and this fragmentation has many reasons behind it. Like as earlier our colleague has mentioned about cyber balkanization. So balkanization is the historical division of countries on the basis of language, religion, culture. Similarly, splinternet is the division of internet on the basis of the views of the country, the economical status, the type of the government that the country has. So this is becoming more and more a reality. And as in 2016, UN has already declared that online freedom is a fundamental human right and that must be protected. There is no legal binding on any country, but then UN has the power to apply the pressure and to bring transparency in the countries. And so on one side, we are going towards opening up internet, providing free internet to all. On the other side, for example, as EU has passed the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, it has the provision of right to be forgotten, which completely is aligned with what a human should be given the right of. But then it goes against the thinking that internet should be freely available, because this is in a way changing the internet, changing the data available on the internet. So if something is removed from the internet, it won't be available for the people. And and the exact same thing is happening across the world. The governments, for example, China, Russia, or any other government, they are trying their best to control the internet so that th- they are able to control what people see on the internet, what people search, what information they get on the internet. So seeing its negative side of the splinternet, it is being regulated for the benefit of few powerful, say, government or say the tech companies, for their benefit. On the other side, seeing the benefits of the splinternet, it becomes even more important for having splinternet right now, because in the world where there is cyber security is such an important issue, there is threat of cyber war everywhere. So a country, any country, needs its internet, its data to be protected from outside attacks, outside influence, as it is done by banking networks. We have all the banking networks, they have their individual inter- separate internet connectivity, which is unlinked with the normal internet that we view, so as to protect their data. So this is becoming important. So if we say that we don't need this splinter net, we need open net. The country which thinks so and which moves in this direction, it will be difficult for them to survive a cyber war, a cyber attack. So a firewall is a necessity right now. Huh. To reduce that, we will have to make the cyber security stronger. This may be possible for the rich and developed Western countries, but that is not so possible in the developing countries or less developed countries. They have not the resources to protect their system. So this becomes even more important to protect the internet of a nation from the outside influence. But then, and in India as well, we saw a very heated debate about Facebook basics and Reliance. They were trying to provide data to particular people who access their data in a customized manner, and it was outrightly rejected by Indian policymakers. But then one way or the another, it is entering in our world, and so the most important issue right now will be how to regulate this. How, because we are talking about the governance and the data sovereignty, how our data should be protected, should not be influenced by others. And for this, we will have to choose who will be the responsible authority to do that, because each and every country differ in morality as well as in the sense of right and wrong. Take this censorship law. There will be difference between a conservative government and a liberal government to regulate the data, to regulate the movies or TV series. So this is an issue we need to discuss, like who will be responsible, how will we go about it. Like one of our colleague mentioned that we will have to take top down approach. So it is an issue and it needs to be discussed, and it has to be broad based and at a global level. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Prakhar Prakash. I would request Mr. Prantik Mukherjee to speak next.
Good morning and thank you, Kshitij. So, before starting with my speech, I want to clear one thing that I do not particularly support the concept of splinter net, because the main idea of having an internet was of its borderless nature, which will actually help in the growth of the digital economy and the revolution of the technical innovations. So yeah, I can understand because of that Edward Snowden case of that back in the because of that whistleblowing leaks and all. There was a need for this data localization laws and everything, and which many countries wouldn't risk about leaking their data and all. But if in reality, if we see, sorry, if you see the practice of data localization laws, it is very clear that it is very clear that it will actually cause inefficiencies, and it will have a greater cost in cost in importing the infrastructure, and those who are actually in the framework of this global net, they will have they will their technological advances may be affected or impeded by such laws. So, if you recall that the US was in actually favor of a global internet infrastructure, and we have also witnessed that Google has tried to bring internet to the whole world. They have installed some internet clouds and all to give access to internet in remote areas too. But subsequently, after this Edward Snowden case, the US is also trying to follow the path of China to enhance their splinter net policies. And meanwhile, we have also witnessed that several countries have told Apple and Google to exclude certain apps from their stores. Like in the past 1 year period, 1 year period covered by Apple's transparency report, like it's no fewer than 15 nations requested the removal of a total of 1,311 apps in 150 separate petitions alleging violations of local laws. And Apple alleged all or part of the 12 of these requests and ended up making 851 apps unavailable in several countries. So what I want to say, what I want to say is actually it's infringing the right of a individual to access a particular app or a particular facility of the internet which it gives. But and if we see the many of these requests came from totalitarian states such as China, which actually requires a majority of withdrawals. And I don't blame China for it because China is a closed economy, and they they don't support other apps in building in their country apart from their own. So following China, there is Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Russia, and even recently are seeing India and Norway doing it. So so we have to understand why these data localization laws are being inculcated into this into the whole data protection law regime. The main factor which arises is the national sovereignty, and there is a fear like a and there is also like a fear of data leaks to other countries, and data leakage of very crucial and sensitive critical information. But yeah, if you see look into India's personal data protection bill, we can witness that to some extent it allows data transfer to other jurisdictions and all. But we have to understand one thing: like if this internet policies actually comes into force, then there will be a lot. It will actually affect a lot of this global businesses worldwide. So, like for instance, like I'm about to give a illustration with regard to this. So, suppose like if company X is headquartered in India but has subsidiaries around the world. So, does that mean that under data localization laws, all of company X's data would be stored in India by the cloud service providers? If it uses to manage its online operation. Alternately, should localized data be stored in the country of each company X subsidiary? Will the country of incorporation matter, or just the country where the relevant office or employee is located? So, as it stands today, there is no more such clear answer regarding to all this. If we really want to have a splinter policy, we should actually answer these kind of questions first, because unless we understand these questions and try to bring this splinter policies into practical field, there is no way we can have a policy like this, and it will actually affect a large business worldwide. Thank you.
Rajput to speak next. Mr. Sumar Rajput, if you're there.
Hello, good morning. Am I audible? Hello.
Perfectly audible.
Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
Perfectly audible, Sumar. You can go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so understand the internet sovereignty, right? So in order to understand the present situation, we have to look at firstly to the past, and then from the past, we have to look at the better future. So before all our society has been formed, there's nothing like there are people who are just wandering around the land. So then comes the social contract theory. From there on, they have developed different ideologies, right? Like democracy, like communism, fascism, Nazism, and the World War has begun. So if you look at the current scenario, only the uh, scenario has been changed. Like in past, different nations trying to control the borders, the land of the different countries, right? In today's scenario, they're trying to control the uh, data universe in short. So in order to regulate, we have so what I'm trying to say is it is always the case that the different ideologies exist. From the past, we have to look at the scenario where these nations all come together to for the betterment of a society and for the betterment where there will be no cyber war. Like after World War One, there's a Treaty of Versailles has been signed, but eventually World War Two has happened. So in order to restrict such kind of situation, we have to look at a better way to regulate the data in a proper manner. Uh, Today, internet can be used as a very progressive for progressiveness as well as the weapon. On the other hand, if we look at 1948 and 1950s, in terms like today, the data can be one of the most prospective aspect. But in the past, if we look at like nuclear wars, during nuclear wars between 1950s to 1990s, there's a between the nations, they try to acquire the nuclear weapons, right? Uh, so then the various regulation has been created to regulate that how many nations should have a particular amount of nuclear weapon in the place. In a similar way, we have to look at certain scenarios where uh, we can look at a possible way out. So, and as we see that COVID-19, in a current scenario, it has actually became a catalyst towards a technological advancement. So recently, I have watched an video of Elon Musk in which he has. So there was a conference where he has actually experimented on a data chip which he has put in the sheep's brain, and it was used for data mapping of. So data might be used in the future for internet too. So after the post conference, a question has been asked to the Elon Musk that in the down the line 20 years, it be possible to transfer data from the humans, like their dreams, their information. So he said yes, 20 years down the line, it is possible. So at the present scenario, so this is the future. Like 20 years down the line, the data is not only restricted to the machines and the information related to a person, but it is related to a particular person itself. So data can be and the nations which have developed the data more efficiently first are the market leaders during that scenario. So at the present, we have to look at the past, that what they have done to regulate this particular regulations. For example, the GDPR, how the like GDPR, when it has been formed, what are the debates of those GDPR? What are the agenda? We have to look at those committees, like the discussion that we are having. There might be similar notes which were there on the record, that why did they form this particular policy at that, like what were the views when they formed this particular laws. Like not only the India, but we have to look at all the nations discussions regarding forming that particular policy altogether to understand the governance. So basically we have to look at the past in the present for the betterment of better future. Thank you, if I am clear.
Uh, Mr. Sanadara, if you are present.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, Kshitij, you are
Hello,
audible.
Mr. Sanadara.
Yes, yes. So I think Mr. Sanad will go ahead. Yes. Thank you so much, Samar. You had 25 seconds left. So Sanad,
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
See, with the current scenarios and enrolling in Russia and China, I don't really think that any kind of international policy or international customary law would help us regulate the internet in any way or form. I mean, I it has rarely happened that customary international law has been enforced in local jurisdictions of a country, and we can also take examples of international human rights law for that matter. I mean, look at China right now. They are persecuting Uyghur Muslims at a large scale. Like, what action is the UN taking, or what action is the international community taking? Like, look at what they've done in Hong Kong. I mean, nobody can regulate what a country does to. I mean, essentially, the sovereign government has all forms of power to regulate its citizens however it wants. And if we can't really regulate basic human rights, then data, which is something, it's inanimate. It has got no human characteristic whatsoever. So how can we even have how can the international community have the empathy to regulate data if it can't even regulate human rights properly? What I believe is that when it comes to Splinternet regulations, Splinternet already exists. It's already all pervasive. Internet is different in different parts of the world, and instead of taking a blanket stance that there should be no Splinternet, internet should be free, I'd rather propound that internet should be regulated, but there are certain aspects of the internet should be regulated. Like there shouldn't really be any illicit content on the internet. There shouldn't be mass privacy violations through the internet. If we take the example of India right now, we recently sanctified the right to privacy as a fundamental right under Article 21. And now the government has come out with the Personal Data Protection Bill, and under Chapter 8 of that bill, it grants the government all kinds of exemptions. Essentially, the act doesn't even apply to the central government if it says that we violated the privacy of the citizen under the garb of national security, for that matter. What we can do is right now, what in fact any person can do to regulate or to have somewhat of a policy for internet regulation could be to advocate at a very local level for internet freedom, data privacy, and all these kinds of ideals. Have the local stakeholders and multiple local stakeholders at every level to advocate for these ideals. And I guess that is the only way we can save the internet and not really have our privacy or our human rights being stamped upon by the government. That's it. I'd like to end now.
Thank you so much, Sanad. So the next speaker after Sanad would be uh, Time Nega, the last speaker. So, Time, can you hear me? I hope you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Manu. So basically, the present situations has grown in internet as very vast. So the many of the persons, people were thinking that the questions arise, who owns the internet? The answer is no one and everyone. The internet is network of networks. Each of the separate networks belongs to different companies and organizations. And they're really on physical servers in different countries with varying laws and regulations. But without some common rules and norms, these networks cannot be linked effectively. Although that internet governance as unitary regime may in fact be an impossibility, a broader conception of governance recognizes both the entire and the diversity governance activities that steer the ship. So there is no question that the arrival of fragmented and the divided internet is now upon us. The Splinter net, where cyberspace is controlled and regulated by different countries, is no longer just a concept, but now a dangerous reality with the future of World Wide Web at stake. Governments and advocates in support of free and open internet have an obligation to stay side of the authoritarian regimes, isolations, the web to control information and their populations. Both we can see that China and Russia have rapidly increased their internet oversight, leading to increased digital authorization. While China and Russia may be two of the biggest internet disputes, they are by no means the only ones. So Basically, we are entering in a new era, a battleground of sort between nations. The some governments and industry watching Splinternet. The Splinternet is essentially the splitting up the internet into country-specific and the region-specific internet, creating a balkanization effect. So, the Splinter is already formatted trade to business operating in multiple countries such as US, China, and Russia, and many other developed countries. The fact is, not all countries are playing by the same rules. Different nations have different rules governing the use and movement of all kinds of data. So, keeping on the base side, the governance of splendid internet should be in focus of privacy. That the one of the biggest driver of change is one individuals and society encoded trust and privacy into the new machines. The policy, text, and regulations, law, all these fragmented, they fundamentally reshape internet. So modern democratic societies and forward-thinking companies are taking steps to build new guidelines for data moderations, privacy, and transparency to establish trust in our digital interactions. For example, Facebook is the signaling a bold step towards a privacy-focused vision for social networking. Start with shape of our personal data and how we experience trust and privacy will be the main theme to watch, control, and nature and manage in the future. So governance should be in focus of privacy and data protections of the person. Thank you.
So here we are done with the opening statements for the sub-agenda. I would like the President to make certain remarks if he wishes to.
Thank you, Abhi. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, delegates, and it was quite interesting to hear various thoughts, various backgrounds, various schemes and themes which you all have provided during your opening statement. What I would like to sort of also, do is just give you a sort of a broad background and where do we see actually, from my perspective personally, the whole issue of Splinternet going across. So essentially the first question is, why is this splintering happening? And most of it, stems from a combination of effects of, countries, individual states trying to maintain their own national data sovereignty. And, whether it is in the name of data privacy, data localization, restrictions on data deemed inappropriate by governments, and therefore the whole sort of situation is well before us. China, of course, long before it started as we said, the Great Wall of China in terms of the data, keeping pretty much the world, away from their freedom of internet, and that could be the reason because of the manner in which the government is constituted and the country is run. However, that didn't stop other countries, specifically whether you talk about Russia, you talk about India, you talk about any other countries now pretty much in some form and manner leading to the same conclusion. Now the question which begs consideration here is, whether things like this of freedom of internet, whether we can, try and I also heard, and I will just, for the sake of brevity, just repeat that whether, United Nations could be one of the forums to try and see whether, the way it passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that people have the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Now, while this was all drafted in 1948, but it clearly reflects the sentiment which was felt following the World War II. And we are now almost 70 years ahead of it, where, before the age of the internet. And whether, in 2016 also, when the United Nations declared online freedom to be a fundamental right, whether these kinds of mottos or these kinds of declarations which have been reached by the United Nations could be a step forward to discuss global scenarios as to how do we want to take this further. So, one of the steps could be implement a transparent monitoring system which ensures that the full resources of the internet and ability to operate are easily accessible to all citizens. Yes, of course, those have some challenges, and we have seen whether it's free speech, hate speech, whatever it is, that's something which we will have to wait and watch. The other thing is whether, we can align the largest Western internet companies' censorship creep, and together they can jointly assemble detailed reports on each government's efforts towards this overreach program. And let me be very honest, the global tech companies clearly are fully aware about which specific countries are applying what pressures for censorship, restriction of digital speech. And therefore, whether it's the United Nations and global tech companies, both public and private, can, together try and prove some strong adversaries, protect the citizens, and accordingly, every individual therefore deserves as much as this freedom, which we all should be. Now, whether you stay in a communist country, you stay in an open society, you may be of whatever race and creed, ultimately the freedom to receive information is the most basic right which should be given to all. And therefore, to that extent, I would like to, give my thoughts on that. The other situation which is, given the way privacy, given the way GDPR, all these principles are coming out, ultimately it's collaboration between countries. Ultimately, it is the principles between these countries that we will now need to sort of get together and adopt between us. And, from a perspective of give and take, from a perspective of data being which will sort of cross the boundaries, how do we expect that the country, from originating country, from where the data is leaving to any other country which is where the data is being processed, ultimately receives the same treatment as it should receive in the originating country, which is something that we can all sort of discuss. And last and not the least, the interesting situation will be, while we can say governments are doing this, we can say whoever are doing this, ultimately this is all a subject which has been borne by all the technology companies. And ultimately, the technology companies will have to understand that how would they like to bypass a splintering, because ultimately it's a threat to businesses operating in multiple countries. So whether it's a US-based enterprise who needs to reverse the state of denial and educate themselves regarding data sovereignty and how to manage their business's data through it, that's something which they will have to understand. Now, the fact is that all countries are not playing by the same rules, and therefore different nations have different rules. How exactly are the companies going to sort of dodge this question of splintering? How do we expect them to, use this for the businesses and ultimately take the data of the consumers, individuals, people? And some of the basic questions which we will have to ask them is that, do we have an international data strategy? Can we manage data movement specific either to the EU, India, China, other regions? Can we respond fast to important national and regional regulatory changes? Can we avoid being blocked from operating in each nation by instantly changing our data management settings? Ultimately, this is all the questions collectively, whether at the highest level, collaborative level at the United Nations, at the company level, whether it is for the purposes of good cause, commercial cause, all these questions will have to be answered. and accordingly every country will be taking their own steps, baby steps in this direction, hoping that one day we will have global principles which will take this forward. So that's some of my few inputs on this, and that's it. Thank you.
Certainly, of a pleasure. So, members, now once we have already exhausted discussion on one of the sub-agendas, which is introductory aspects of Splinternet, I must say. My simple input here is this. So, feedback is in this way. You can actually go from country to country, and you can criticize them as per their specific activities, because now in the next sub-agendas we will discuss regionalism in general and Splinternet, because now what we are going to do is that, okay, now we are going to get on China, we are going to get on USA, you're going to get on Israel, all the countries. But it is humbly recommended that while you are discussing Splinternet and this issue specifically, uh, please do not limit the argument to a few countries, because when we are talking about global approaches, there are two understandings. Number one, you need to understand how plurilaterally they're working and how they are not eyeing up to the multilateral forums, and why is it not happening. That is something which will be the trigger point of this agenda. And wherever you discuss this, where whatever aspect you discuss this, it will actually lead in that way, because the triggering is why plurilateralism and multilateralism are not being coherently translated simultaneously. So, okay, let's go ahead with another motion. One of the sub-agendas. If any delegate wishes to discuss any other sub-agenda, please go ahead. Yes. Okay, so the recommendation is that as we refer to the sheet, we can limit our discussion to these four. I think the first one which was recommended was how Splinter can be governed and foreseen. So on this aspect, we can't conclude much, but I would request the delegates to be participatory, since I think everybody has now spoken. So the basic question that we have is this. Should we discuss the next three agendas one by one? Because then we need to get on with discussions. You still have 4 hours left in that sense. So the next sub-agenda is how telecommunication and radioactive involvement through AI, it is run by AI, through AI, will be influenced by multilateralism and geopolitical disruption. So uh, this is one of the sub-agendas we had decided. Since there is no tenable response as now, we are considering to go ahead with this to discuss. Therefore, I would request one of the delegates to introduce a motion. I have a request to the delegates. Uh, if you need reference to the document, we can share it to you again, because participation is very necessary here. Therefore, kindly respond. Yes. So, Splinternet as customary law. Okay, so Dev, you have to actually introduce the motion by speaking up. That I would like to move the motion to discuss this. Yes.
Okay, sure. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so I am of the opinion that the application of international law to state cyber attacks, sovereignty, and non-intervention could play a major role. And Splinternet, as customary law, needs to be developed. So the vast majority of state-to-state cyber attacks consist of persistent low-level intrusions that take place below the threshold of use of force. Now, international
Right.
law, including the principles of non-intervention in another state's internal affairs and the principle of sovereignty, applies to these cyber operations as well.
Now, it is not clear whether there is any unauthorized cyber intrusion which would violate the target state sovereignty or whether there is a threshold in operation. So, the principle of non-intervention applies to a state's cyber operation as it does to other state activities, and therefore it should consist of coercive behavior by one state that would deprive the target state of its free will in relation to the exercise of its sovereign functions in order to compel an outcome in or conduct with respect to a matter reserved to the target state. So, what I'm trying to say here is that the assessment of whether sovereignty has been violated and whether it should be made on a case to case basis should be a part of the international law.
Okay, so to discuss this further, let's have a vote. Members who are in favor of this, please say aye. Please type it on the Google Meet chat. Those who are not in favor, please say no. So we are awaiting the vote. Please register your votes. Thank you. Every delegate will be given 5 minutes for discussion on this issue. So please vote. Okay, Dave, can you again introduce the motion because it has lapsed? Just enumerate what we have to discuss at the title because I think there's a confusion. So if you can do it, yeah.
Okay, so
just the title, yes.
State cyber attacks consist of persistent low-level intrusions that take place other states' internal. Any unauthorized cyber intrusion would violate the target state's sovereignty or whether there is a threshold in operation, while some would like to set limits by reference to the effects of the national law. Now, the assessment basis if no other more specific rules of international law are applicable. Now, in the due course, the further state practice and opinio juris can give rise to an emerging cyber just as specific as the rules deriving from the sovereignty principle have been crystallized in other areas of international law. So, therefore, I am of the opinion that consider that an obligation may be breached.
Okay. In that case, I would request the delegates to please vote ayes or noes to discuss.
As this is very requisite about the abstract principles of law.
Okay. Okay. Great. I'm so sorry there was some audibility issues I was not able to understand, but I got it. Okay.
Okay. So do you want me to repeat again?
No, no issues, no issues. Thank you for the briefing.
Okay. Okay.
I humbly request the delegates if they're hearing me. We are yes. So exactly. Okay. I would request rest of the delegates to vote ayes or noes who wish to discuss this. Dave has already given the briefing on this, please. Yeah. Okay, it's 50-50 right now because 3 ayes, 3 noes. So the motion is not passed because rest of the people have not voted. Members, since nearly all of you have declared to be present in voting, I think nearly all of you, it is important that you vote. I would request the people to vote because it is still 50-50. And no. Okay, so currently it is not passed, but if still anybody wishes to, we can consider a yes or no accordingly. Okay. No. Okay. Okay, then great. No issues. Was I the only not able to hear their voice? Yeah, maybe some network issues were happening, maybe from the side of Dave. So I'll give a brief. Actually, Dave was trying to discuss the issue of customary international law in Splinternet, which simply means that there are certain low-level state practices with regards to data protection and data regulation, which actually affect the transnational scenario. So if people who are interested to hear discuss this, they can do. But since most of you have said no, we will go ahead with that. So okay, no issues there. What we will do is that on that aspect itself, you can actually give your suggestions. And in the near future, what we'll do is that once you produce a resolution or propose any recommendations, we will debate those recommendations. So members, for example, if your motion is not passed, then at least your resolutions and draft recommendations can come to us. You have to mail them, and then we will display them to all of you, and then you can discuss the same. Okay, that also we can do at least. Great. Anybody else who wishes to discuss any aspect of the sub agenda, please introduce your motion. Please do.
I would like to move for the data protection issues. Considering that we've already discussed the scope about the Splinternet and internet governance, one of the major challenges that the states will be facing will be data protectionism. 5G is an era where there will be more interdependence required by the states. So even if they do want to have a certain national jurisdiction of the internet governance, but still there will be cross-border data transfers, and this has also been stated in the recent GDPR. And with that, other countries have also taken up to their own privacy laws. The California CCPA and the other privacy laws are here. So
Yes.
this is something that is going to be conflicting among the states, and a very pertinent issue, considering even now that 5G will be here, and suppose certain states do provide something and there could be a manipulation even based on data. So if we could discuss about this, then that would be my like whatever consideration for this.
Okay. I would request the delegates to vote on the motion. Ayes or noes? Please do. Thank you. If there is a deadlock vote, then the president can vote on the deadlock. But currently, unless there is a deadlock, the executive board is not allowed to vote. If there is a deadlock, then the president is allowed to vote. Yes. Okay. Four ayes. Okay. I request people to vote, please. Data protectionism and Splinternet is the concerned sub agenda. Okay. Five ayes or six ayes? Yeah, six ayes. Okay. Okay, seven. It's really great. It's getting a majority. Already it's a majority, but anyways. Okay. So I may consider that it's a majority because it's 7 to 8 in that sense. So it's a majority, but still, okay, there's none. 7:1. Okay. We are still waiting. Those who wish to vote. Okay. The vote stands by 7:1. The motion passes. So now we are getting into the formal debate for the sub agenda on data protectionism and Splinternet. Arundhati, you have just joined again. I have a question. So we are going to pass a motion, but we need to confirm if you wish to, although it will be passed anyways. But the question is that whether would you like to discuss the sub agenda on data protectionism and Splinternet? So it's already a majority. So what would you like to vote? Yes or no? Aye. Thank you. So it says it's 8-1. Okay, 9-1 by the way. No issues. 9-1. The motion passes. So let's go ahead with the debate. 5 minutes is given to every delegate, and in the end, the president shall give the remarks once this debate happens. And yes, one more request to all the delegates. So you have to connect with your session consultant Samir Sammal and Kshitij Naik. Once every sub agenda is discussed, it is a humble request that all the delegates collaborate among themselves. They can share a Google Drive document or something like that. They have to submit a set of recommendations on what do they have on each of the sub-agendas, because this is mandatory for the sake of the report that has to be given. Therefore, it is important that this is done. So, Kshitij, you can share the email ID of ICIL and you all of you can share the Google Drive document that you have made. You have to name the authors of the resolution, and that's it. You have to mention the conference name, the session, what kind of meeting is it, and you have to submit the recommendations. So you have to lobby it among yourselves as to who will actually note down the main pointers which have been finalized. So this actually has been informed. It has to be submitted by 4:30 p.m. So one of the delegates has to consult with Shritin Naik and Samir Samal to go ahead with this. I hope that is okay with all.
Can you please repeat it again? Like I had some this network issue, so I couldn't hear it
Definitely,
properly.
definitely. My simple concern is that whenever you discuss a sub agenda, so make a document. Okay, make a document among yourself. Share with us at the ICIL ID, icillij@gmail.com, and in that find out the main pointers of every sub agenda discussed. Because currently we have not allowed for interjection. From now on, we will allow for interjections. So that is how it will go ahead. One of you just make a Google Drive document, share it with your delegates. You have to collectively note down the important pointers that you have suggested in a reasonable manner, and that has to be submitted every day to Mr. Kshitij Naik, and that's the process at 4:30 p.m. I hope I was audible, right? Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Please do that in cooperation. You can consult it with your fellow delegates on the chat as you wish to. So that's it. For that, we will take a break, but not right now. Let us discuss this aspect. Once all the delegates discuss for 5 minutes, then we will go ahead with the break. With an informal debate, where in informal debate you can discuss it among yourselves. We will not be intervening thereafter. So, in the particular order, I believe Anurati should start in, but Anurati is not here right now. Maybe there's some network issues. So, Arundhati, you're the first speaker. Please start. Okay, Arundhati, there are some network issues. Okay. Okay. So we will then. Okay, that's just weird. So considering that Dave also does have some network issues and he's not available, I think the first person to start is Mr. Goffey. So yes, sir, you can start then. You have 5 minutes. Thank you. Yes, noted. No issues. Okay, so what we can do is, I think we can wait with Mr. Goffey. He can be the second speaker in that regards, because there's some network issues, perhaps no issues. Kashmi, you can begin. Yes.
Yes. So, when we talk about data protection, firstly there would be two issues in the case of data protection. It was it would be nationally, and second also like globally that would occur among states. Now, nationally, because like obviously every like with this internet, every data, if every nation has their own set of data protection laws, and lot of these laws are based on the principle that the data law, like the data laws are such that it is to maintain the privacy of the individuals, and it is made for the rights of the individuals. But a much debated issue on this is that are these really for the rights of the issue, or for the rights of the people? Because the contested rights, like right to be forgotten, right to be erasure, right to erasure, such rights how are they implemented? Now under the GDPR, they're implemented by taking in by the intermediaries, that is your private entities, Google or Facebook, all of these entities. They will decide whether whether your data will be removed or not. Now these are private entities. These entities will always have profit motives, or motives to their own private intentions, because of which will the rights of these individuals, or will the rights of citizens be actually promoted? Now if such a thing does not happen, then globally where would we stand at this? So that's why if nations start subduing the rights of individuals, there has to individuals, there has to be a certain global stance on it as well, that data protection rights is necessary. And because of which, even the countries are coming up with such data protection laws. But it also has to be something that is not just there, but it is actually implemented by the countries. Secondly, internationally, obviously, because different countries have different ideologies related to privacy and data protection. Like if we take the example of US and EU, US has a very different ideology of privacy, where they believe more in freedom of speech, and they don't believe that much in the government intervention, because of which they are right to, like, their privacy and data protection laws are rather in a fragmented nature, whereas in the EU side of it, it is they believe more, they have a whole unified structure, and they believe more in the data privacy side of it. And both of the countries have they have tried to come to an agreement by the safe harbor to the EU US shield, but there still have been a variety of problems. And there was obviously the recent judgment wherein US and EU again tried to come to a middle ground. And the country is even taking such a step is an initiative that I would call a positive stride towards maintaining such data protection standards, because this is what will be important even in the coming days. Now that 5G is something that will be here, and countries would require technological infrastructure, spectrum requirements, and states will be dependent on each other. The states could also have a certain power over the data. So if this should not be manipulated. For that, it is necessary that the states amongst themselves also have data protection standards which are maintained, and these data protection standards should not be hampered with. So yeah, that would be what I had to say about this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Mridpal, please go ahead. 5 minutes. Mridpal, I believe there's some network issue, if I must say. Let me confirm. Sure. Mridpal, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Please begin. Yeah.
Yes, so the Edward Snowden whistleblowing leaks have ensured the fact that we as the global citizenry we are continuously paranoid of what is to happen in the future with relation to data protection and privacy. Further, with localization of data being put into effect and with the splinternet coming into effect more so, uh, there are higher chances that certain data rights of ours shall be infringed and most certainly will be. In practice, data localization laws are highly likely to fragment the internet, resulting in inefficiencies and greater costs. Also, data localization laws already exist in various forms and degrees in several developed and developing countries. Like we've got Vietnam, we've got Australia, we've got Austria, we've got Russia, we've got China, and so many other places. But however, we've always known that China has been leading the propaganda machinery to a certain extent. Now, if we consider that aspect, we need to be aware, we need to understand what the implications are. Like the storage of data, the implications of such laws and regulations for corporeal bodies, corporeal entities, for us as individuals as well. Now we have to ensure that our human rights aren't infringed because, as already discussed earlier, data and uh, information has been granted to be a human right. Also, we need to make sure that our RTI, our right to information, is not infringed, most certainly, because there are certain instances where certain news or certain incidents are repressed in order for us to not know about it. We have to be certain that such things do not happen, and especially in the time where the internet itself gets fragmented and the data gets localized, we have to make sure that our governments or our representatives or anyone for that matter is not pitting us against each other by propagating fake news or by making sure that the real news does not reach us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mridutpal. Okay, Anuti, you can go ahead for 5 minutes, and then Mr. Goffey can do it. So you have 5 minutes for the agenda, sub agenda. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So I think Anuradhi does have some network issues. I think I have to pass it to Mr. Goffey then. So, sir, if you can hear me, we can begin. So you have 5 minutes. Yeah. Anuradhi, can you speak now?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm having
Perfectly audible.
problems
Please.
with my internet.
Yeah.
Um,
No
okay,
issues. No issues. So, okay, we are starting the timer now. Okay. Thank you. No issues. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was not in the previous for the previous 2 minutes. Can
Definitely, we can elaborate. So we had decided to discuss the sub-agenda on protectionism with regards to data protectionism and splintering. So the question is whether would you like to discuss this? So you have 5 minutes for this. You can let me know when you're ready. Uh, and with regards to the delegates who are not able to speak, I understand the network issues. These happen. It's common. It's perfectly fine. The best idea that I have here is that please focus on the reports. So connect with Kshitij and focus on the reports as well. If you're not able to speak, then provide your recommendations there. Debate those recommendations. I think that would be a great thing to do. And my personal recommendation is that you discuss each agenda each day, which means, sorry, every agenda 1 day at least. So discuss the first agenda for today. Okay, you have some time, and then do it again tomorrow. That's the best way to do it. So, Anurati, that's the thing. We have this data protectionism and Splinternet. I would like to know if you would like to begin with it.
yes, I would like to begin.
Please go ahead.
So with regards to data protectionism and Splinternet, I think what we should start with is seeing why countries and why there is a need for Splinternet, and what is the main content of which is why it is needed. So one of the main reasons is that countries and organizations want to avoid acts of terrorism. They want to avoid insensitive content, also content which can relate to pornography, and also, like a lot of my fellow delegates have mentioned before, to survive the all-out cyber war. Also facts like cyberbullying. So it is not very surprising to know that a country would want to safeguard the citizens against all of these. And yes, one might agree that um, that an open internet or a open platform will give rise to all of these. But I think it is important to keep in mind that um, it is possible to limit and it is possible to keep these in check. uh, I would also like to point out over here that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Article 19, states that the people have the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media, regardless of the frontiers. So it is important that even though these drawbacks and these threats are in place, we regulate, and we have bodies in place which will help maintain the legislature, maintain laws to punish and to also bring justice to citizens or organizations or countries who face this. Some of it would be better, it would be a nice option to have legal tribunals or courts in place to make sure that uh, countries are in accordance with the norms and regulations. We can have a body in place to regulate and investigate about the pressures of the censorship and restrictions that countries are applying on the ability to take legal steps to address them. We have the benefit of having non-actors who can come into the process to provide assistance to countries for for the implementation, and also to maintain a system of online freedom. There is also the need to have developing countries have a say in the establishment of rules, as we know that a lot of times developed countries use the power of veto, and thus developing countries are just left to adhere, or are strong armed to into accepting the conditions. So I guess careful diplomacy would be is an important part. Um, Apart from that, we have to make sure that this does not lead to to deterioration of our democratic system or of the fall of our freedom and our boundaries. Um, Norms and regulations for the non-harmful applications of technologies are needed, and even when all of these are in place, the applicability and adaptability of these laws are really important. And in the end, I think coordinated rulemaking on an international level is the way to go, and it will bring about it will help us to address these threats in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you, Anurati. So we can wait for Mr. Gopi since we understand that there's some network issues, so no issues for that. Mridut Pal, would you like to go ahead, or we can go with Mr. Prakhar accordingly? Let me know. Okay, Prakhar, I would like to ask you to begin with your speech on this.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. So, right now we are discussing about data protection and Splinternet. So, the Splinternet is, as we have already discussed, it's divided internet, which has its own restrictions. So, for the data protection, we need data localization. Because if servers, as we have already discussed, if we have server in a particular country, it will be easier for the country to regulate it, to make its law applicable on the server, and therefore the government requires all the government data to be stored in servers located in that particular country, for example in India. And therefore like we have various citizen data which is very sensitive, very important, and which should not be attacked, be leaked and be shared, like the other Aadhaar data, or for that matter RBI recently came out with a regulation to save all the banking transaction data, all the data by NPCI to be located in local server. So all these needs to be located at a local place, in a local jurisdiction, having a control of the government so that it is not misused or attacked. And for this, as taking examples from personal life, when we make payment through UPI, it requires GPS location to authenticate that transaction. So, in a way, it is not available for a person who is outside the territory of that country. Similarly, today morning, I got a notification from Amazon that there was an attempt to log in my account from Singapore. So, if suppose there is a situation that for Amazon, for Flipkart, or for that matter any other websites, if there is a restrictions that a person from India, because I'm residing here, only I will be able to log in. So a person from India will only be able to log in to that particular account. So it will be much more secure. During the COVID time, there was also various news that there may be attempt to attack our internet system from Chinese government or any other terrorist activity. So in a way, this can be protected through data localization and restricting the access to these websites which an Indian is using from the other people. For example, suppose in a website we need to log in through giving our personal details. We need to log in to access that data. But why can't it be possible that there is a requirement that a person from this particular region only can enter into this website and see the details? So in this way, we will be making the internet more secure from the outside attack, and it will be protected. Uh, and for this, maybe to how to go about this, we can come up with a guideline, maybe a global guideline. Maybe we can come up with a different altogether new body, or we may discuss it in United Nations. and there can be different level of data protections, different level of datas which needs to be protected. Few may be the data which need not be protected at all. There may be few which needs to be protected at a country level. There might be few which needs to be protected at a state level or even at a local level, because uh, going against the normal view of internet being global and a person from anywhere should be able to access data to any other place, we could say that why should a person residing somewhere else be able to access data of a particular gram sabha or gram panchayat at a very local level? So these might be regulated, and different level of data protection can be granted. And after a detailed deliberations, one can come up with at a global level. We can come up with which type of data needs to protect it to what an extent. And as the global body won't be able to forcefully implement it across the globe, so it can have some indexes like internet freedom index. Similar to that, there can be some indexes through which and through global consensus we can force or pressurize the uh, governments to implement that. So in this way we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Meanwhile, while you're going ahead with this, please have a look at this message on the Google Meet chat. It is very necessary. To all the delegates, I recommend your suggestions in this report for day one. We have already initiated and created a verification code for this, which is 0110 AIGA S1202001 REP. REP means report. If it is a draft resolution that you would like to discuss, there will be RES. So that is it. Let's go ahead with the delegates. So I hope it is acknowledged by all, this notification. Okay, great. Okay, fair enough. Prantik, please go ahead. You have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so like before like talking about internet and data protection, first we have to understand what's the significance of having a splinternet. So if we understand, yeah, it in a way splinternet is actually might protect the national sovereignty of many countries, but it will actually defeat the objective of having the perspective of globalization. So, and second of all, like what I'm which we have to understand that if data localization becomes commonplace, determining what data must be stored in which country may be easier said than done. And if we understand yeah, there is a possibility that we can globalization and data localization can go hand in hand. Like like we can we can consider having doing the data localization of critical and sensitive personal data of people in the country. And obviously we can have regulations of transfer or processing of those data outside the realm of country, which are which is actually which will actually depend on circumstance basis. Like if like suppose there is a medical data which needs to be transferred from India to say Germany. So during that time, we can obviously consider for transferring of data of the sensitive personal data of that particular patient to the other country. But if we take a overview of having enforcing splinternet and obviously enforcing the concept of data localization laws, it will create a significant barrier to companies seeking to expand their international presence, and it will eventually restrict the scope of MNCs and subsequently the subsequently the employment market may affect if there is no globalization to partake. And what we can understand is that widespread data localization will require the global service providers to build or rent physical infrastructure in each jurisdiction what requires data localization. The associated costs to that and the administrative burdens will likely make the provision of many global services currently taken for granted by internet users impractical. So, so like, uh, if you consider like after 10 to 20 years in future, there is a possibility that AI may be integrated into the telecommunication infrastructure. Currently, we are entering into the stage of artificial general intelligence, and in subsequent stages, we will be in 10 to 20 years, we will be entering into artificial general intelligence version 2. And there, if artificial intelligence will be integrated into telecommunication infrastructure, and this and if the algorithms are set in such a manner that which will enforce data localization and which will actually restrict any kind of data transfer to any jurisdiction, that will actually limit the scope of globalization, and it will actually enforce the existence of splinter net. So what we have to do is that we have to consider how much we have to restrict and how much we have to not, and that we can only do with various consultations. And we have to go for multilateral treaties, and we have to and obviously we have to strengthen our international bonds with various countries. That's what I have to say. Thank you so much.
I will now, thank you so much, Prantik. We have 34 seconds left. And now we will go ahead with Mr. Goffey if the network is still fine. So, Mr. Goffey, you can take your time now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me correctly?
Yes, it's perfect.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Great. I'm really sorry for that. I had a mic issue, so it's been fixed. So yes, regarding data privacy, I think that we all know that with the fast-paced development of artificial intelligence, data is becoming kind of the new oil, and lots of countries obviously are looking at it as something that is really valuable. And there is a strong competition outside to get as many data as possible. We are all aware of that. My concern about that is that data is becoming a critical point for all citizens all around the world, and especially when I say all citizens, I must be a bit more nuanced than that. Obviously, we do not all have access to the internet the same way in different parts of the world, but most of us are really connected. So it means that our private data are really important. So there are two things that I think must be really that must be done in order to regulate that. The first one is we should have a global body or international body that would support national initiatives in setting rules and regulation in order to make sure that data will not be used in a way that is that is bad for citizens. We all agree on the fact that we have to protect citizens all around the world. So there should be kind of a big global body that would make sure that every national or local regulation would be created in a way that will respect privacy and data privacy. Obviously, that's the first thing. But the other thing that I really want to stress is that this is not only in the end of international body or national regulation systems. It's also about a matter of training or information toward the citizens. We are all using these new technologies and the tools and the what we call the Internet of Things, and we sometimes do it without knowing what the consequences of the use of the systems are. So there is a strong need also to train and inform people about the risks and also of the benefits of using this kind of technology. So the two sides that must be worked on definitely are first kind of an international body that will help national or local initiative building their own set of rules, making sure that those rules will obviously respect the human rights and democracy when it is possible. But on the other side, we have to make sure that this body will help local initiative in training and in informing people about the risks of data and in the use of technology. So these are really two sides that must be worked on really hard, because I do believe, and we all know that data will be a kind of a strategic element in the future.
Thank you so much. You had 1 minute 45 seconds left. So, Summer, I think, okay, Anuradhi is there. Anuradhi is done, I think so. Summer, the floor is for 5 minutes for you.
Am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes, yes.
Am I audible? I think there's some issue with internet.
Yes, it is audible. It's perfectly audible.
Yeah, somebody audible, please go ahead.
Okay. So like as I have previously stated about the origin of the issue, right? So when we look at particular law, for example, in India, we have to look at a triggering point, like why that policy has came at first instance. So there might be a case that has happened, as Mr. Prakash has previously stated, that in the local laws of countries there might be a event that has happened. So we have to essentially look at in a different jurisdiction of all over the world about triggering points of those policies which has been set up. Like there might be an event that has happened for which that laws has been created, and later on they became so famous, and after that they have been adopted by different jurisdictions as well. So for example, in India in 2013-14, there's a place in Bihar called Jamtara, where this fraud of mobile net banking has happened through phone calls and later through net banking. Like I'm a law intern, so I came across these kind of cases in my previous internships. So I came across such a case that in 2013-14 scenario, there's a cases which help, but during that point of time, there was no law related to such issue. So then the government has passed the regulation to make those laws. So in a similar scenario, we have to look all over the globe that what are those triggering point that leads to a creation of those particular laws. Also, we are talking about the sovereignty, but what I am suggesting is a solution is we have to also work together with private industry and private sector as well, because recently in 2019 the FIFA regulation has passed data protection for their players, because in recent event EA Sports has leaked 60,000 players personal data has been leaked on the internet, which has been very criticized. So in a similar scenario, we have to look at the successful private corporate structure of data protection regulation, like how they are governing. So 29 regulation of FIFA has been addressed regarding the protection and privacy of the players, their data, because it has also been leaked. So rather than concentrating on a sovereignty, we have to look at a person to person, because when you form a person, like if they're a group of people, they form a country, and from the country we form the sovereignty and the principle all together. Therefore, we also have to look at the private scenario vis-a-vis the governmental scenario, and we have to look all like we have to work together and then form a stringent policy towards it, because there might be different examples through which we can adopt, and we can come together and then we collaborate together to build a proper structure which will address not only the one sector but the other sector as well. It does not only concentrate to the one sector, it should be addressed to all sectors altogether. there should not be a lacuna. Maybe I understand there's not all laws are very ideal or perfect in nature, but what we can see and what we have at this point, we at least we should collaborate all of that together to form that kind of law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samar. You had 1 minute, 16 seconds. So now I would like to call Sanad to go with his remarks. You have 5 minutes.
Well, my entire point around the discussion of Splinter and data protection is who will advocate for the people. We, like a lot of delegates have mentioned that we should work with the corporates and the government should work in tandem. Some international bodies should be formed and they should help us find the ideal balance between data protection and national security. But as we can see in the real world, that is usually not the case. In fact, when it comes to the US, for that matter, before Mr. Edward Snowden told enlightened the world about the heinous data violations done by the NSA on a daily basis, uh, they used to have this system that's called Prism. So through Prism, they were able to look at everything: text messages, video calls, emails. They had access to each and every form of electronic data which is produced by each and every citizen. And in fact, in many cases, evidence was found that the government and the corporates, they were working in cahoots. So the corporates were equally responsible of selling the data of their consumers to the government. Uh, and I guess data protection should not just be extended to private data, it should also be extended to non-personal data, because non-personal data, as we can see it, it's nothing but behavioral. It can be categorized under the heading of behavioral data. Uh, a recent incident which happened in the UK was there's this site which used to sell maternity goods, and the woman like she was pregnant but she didn't know about it. So she received a notification from that website that, hey, would you like to buy a pregnancy test from us? uh, and she bought it and she got to know that she was pregnant. I mean, this is the level of data violations that corporates are operating at. In this internet age, I'd like to argue that data privacy does not exist, at least when we take the corporate angle. But the true question which lies before us is that whether we want our government to have access to the data, because I mean, the least, in fact, the worst which the corporates can do is perhaps recommend us a product or sell us fake news. Whereas if the government has access to our private chats and our private emails, uh, it can slap us with sedition charges. That is the authority that the government has on its citizens. And with regards to data localization, I guess instead of the national security angle that we need to stop foreign agents from spying on the data of our country's citizens, I guess there's also an AI angle to it, because after the concept of AI took materialization in the form of software, uh, data became a currency, because essentially what fuels AI, it is data. So the more data a country has, the more progress it can make in the field of AI. And we all know how important AI is going to be in the development of nations in the coming future. And I'd also like to state that we already have a model data protection law in front of us, which is the EU GDPR. I don't know whether the international bodies could come up with certain regulation and enforce it to the T, so that all countries would not only protect their national, not only maintain a file balance while protecting their national security, but also protecting their citizens' data, because often under the garb of national security, the local governments, they essentially ask for more access to private data. But uh, especially when it comes to India, we already have certain provisions which are not being enforced, but they can also help us protect against cyber crimes which uh, which take place in and around the country. I guess the only thing that matters is the enforcement of such laws instead of asking for more access to a citizen's private data. That's it from my side, and I'd like to end it over here.
Thank you so much, Sanad. So I think I hope amidst the network issues, no delegate has been left, but some of the delegates have left due to these issues. But anyways, okay. So I would like to ask the president to come with his formal remarks on the same.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. So I understand there are plethora of issues which we have discussed and which was brought about by various delegates. I think the key issue is the fundamental right of every individual and citizen is important. Based on the rights to be provided, irrespective of geographical and any other considerations, if those principles need to be respected, then accordingly I think we need to go across and develop those kinds of principles which we can protect. And once we have those basic principles protected, either by way of a law, regulation, and ultimately those principles need to be governed and ensured that every company who is taking forward and looking at your data needs to apply those principles and ensure that self-regulation, which is very important until unless the laws get promulgated, whether in India and other countries, should be taken up as a first up responsibility, and thereafter we can ensure to see that ultimately this whole situation of these principles coming into force, being taken over by companies and ultimately taken up by governments, should lead to some sort of a overall arching solution to discuss this whole issue of data protection and splintering, and basically could be a way or a way forward for us to take to the next level of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we will go for an informal debate, which is kind of a pseudo break, I must say, for a period of 30 minutes, because I think the next session will start at 2:30. So we are going to make a change for public meeting 2. For public meeting 2, we will initiate from 2 to 4:30, and we will give a break now. So delegates have the time until the break has not happened. So I would request the members to stay. Uh, Before the break happens, which is at 13:30, 1:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and you will come back at 2 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So we will start the meeting at 2 now. It is humbly requested that in the left time, which is I think roughly 20 minutes, because 21 minutes it's not that, it's 20 minutes. You can interject and ask any questions to your fellow delegates. And at the same time, you can think about the motions. So please go ahead. Thank you. Therefore, the questions that will be asked will be counted in the name of point of information. So points of information can be expressed from any delegate to any delegate. So please, that has to be done by taking permission. So those delegates who want to have a point of information on the issues that they're discussing, they can do it. Thank you. Okay, Dave, I would like to confirm. During the debate, I think there was some network issue. You were not available, if I'm right? On data protectionism and Splinter. Would you like to discuss for 5 minutes? You can add your remarks. No, I don't wish to. Okay, perfect. So if you wish to interject, anybody, you wish to ask some questions to the chair, which is the president, or the fellow delegates on anything that they have discussed so far, please do it. Okay, since today was the first day, I thought it would be a trial session. Therefore, for the sake of formality, I declare that as a session consultant that public meeting 1 of Artificial Intelligence General Assembly, first session 2020, will be closed by an adjournment motion passed by all the delegates present and voting, who are right now present and voting. And the president shall declare, I think so, in a while, that public meeting 2 shall be constituted again from 2 p.m. Indian Standard Time onwards. However, before that, I would like to notify that from tomorrow onwards, whatever be the agenda that we are discussing, whether agenda 2, agenda 3, or agenda 4, every delegate is requested to send a note to the secretariat at icillj@gmail.com or indocon@icil.in, in which they will notify just their simple 1 or 2 liners, pointers, as to what they want to pass as a motion. Although they can produce their motion even during that time, even if not notified, but we are doing this to save time and to avoid any confusion. So the motions have to be submitted to us at indocon@icil.in. That has to be done. Just simple pointers you have to do. You can do it on the WhatsApp group if you're available on the WhatsApp group. You can do it through LinkedIn to me. You can do it through chat. You can do it through anything. So please, this is required to be done so that the procedure goes on. This was the first day, so we thought, okay, fine, let's give it a try. Because no question is being asked, we can also prorogue the session right now, and then we can continue. So I would like to ask Mr. Sanjay, should we adjourn it right now and then continue at 2 p.m.? What does he think? Yeah.
Sure, let's do that. If that is in agreement, I believe, with everybody.
So let's pass a motion of adjournment. The president has recommended the same. So members who are interested to adjourn the session, either a majority absolute or a special majority. Yes. Okay, it's a 7, 8. Okay. Okay, it's 8 for now. This is 8 majority, absolute majority, because there's some members present. Now those who have not, we can't count their votes anymore, but if still people are intending to vote, we are giving 10 seconds for it. Okay, fine. Okay, so votes have been registered, which means 8-0. It's an absolute majority, full consensus. So we will go for adjournment. Sir, I would request you to adjourn the session and declare that at 2 p.m. Indian Standard Time we shall come back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the adjournment motion is passed. So we shall come back at 2 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The link shall be the same, so I would await you at 2 p.m. Thank you so much to all.
Thank you.
Kshitij, thank you so much, sir. Yes. Uh,
Yes.
Kshitij, I would request you to stay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay.
Just give me a minute.